I will not lose you. For all the ways I have dismayed, aggrieved, or failed you, I swear I will atone. But I am not sorry. I refuse to apologize for what you have awakened in me. You.
Alright, so obviously I am, my name is Daniel Yoxheimer. Usually do my video vlog on YouTube called Absurd, and I'm just talking about one of my favorite shows that's ending tomorrow night called True Blood, of course. And of course that is a line Bill said to Sookie a couple seasons back after, you know, some stuff happened. And this season has been a little bit odd. Tara got killed in the beginning. She's of course a vampire now, and they wrapped up her story like they kind of wrapped up Terry Belfleur's story last season to make way to focus on the central characters, which is what they've been just doing. They haven't been doing the best job of it, but be that as it may, it's still an enjoyable show, and I'm really looking forward to watching the finale tomorrow night. Now, in the last season, or the last episode of the final season, episode 9, "Love Is to Die For," was it was okay. It was just a little bit. It was a little bit on a little slow. This is. It does have that feel, this is the end of the series type of, vibe to it. The beginning, it's just after Bill refused to drink Cerenulin, who is the cure for the Hep V virus, which has been the central focus of, and my cat decided to join into the show here. Gatsby, you can come over here, I don't want you over there. Come here. Anyway. So, but getting to the thick of the plot, so Bill refuses to, and Bill's getting sick. Bill's just walking around weak and everything like that. Eric had taken the cure, which is being held heavily guarded secret from the public and other vampires, because they want to make sort of a watered down version of it, so to speak, that's kind of just going to treat it, not cure it, because it's how else are you going to make money off of it? And it's been an odd. The last two seasons have been a little bit, you can tell things are coming to a close. It's just the show didn't quite have the fervor it had, at least. I think from the fans, and just I think the writers just are kind of desperately trying to cobble together a plot, for the final seasons. They've taken things from the books in the past and inserted them where it didn't seem to make sense, like the Werepanthers, and then they had the Werepanthers and you never heard from them again. Crystal just walked away. If you know the show, you know what Crystal is, and left Jason for dead, and then Jason, of course, got Jessica's blood, the vampire Jessica. But in the last couple episodes, Hoyt Fortenberry came back, which is Jessica Hamby's former lover, and who was glamored by Jessica at Hoyt's request, so he could forget about the fact that she had slept with Jason and left him and all of that. He couldn't deal with it. He was going to Alaska to start a new life, which he did. But his mother was killed by a Violet, the one vampire, who Hoyt actually winds up killing. So Hoyt was the one who killed Violet, an 850-year-old vampire, just came from behind her with one of the hit her with a wooden bullet. Anyway, this episode is just basically Sookie kind of making peace with some things or whatever. She's pissed Bill won't take the cure, and she goes and so they kind of make their rounds. Sookie, after that happens, Jessica and Sookie go over to Merlot's to not Merlot, well, formerly Merlot's. They go to Sam Merlot's old, he has like a trailer near his bar, which is now called Belfleur's because Arlene bought it. And they go there and they leave, she of course leaves Sookie a note, a letter saying, detailing why he has to leave with his pregnant girlfriend, Nicole, because Nicole is like freaking out earlier in the season because all this shit happens, and it's like, how do you people live here? I mean, it's so fucked up in this town, I can't raise my kid here. So, anyways, and Sam, it's a logical choice. I mean, he has no reason really to stay there. I mean, he wants to see his kid grow up, and he's had enough things happen to him in the town, even though he is going to miss Bon Temps. And so he leaves with her, and Sookie reads the note. Sookie's really upset. Jessica's hugging Sookie. Jessica and Sookie are just friends again, or they've never really been enemies, but they've had their issues. And so they go into Merlot's, and Arlene has a little heart-to-heart with Sookie about everything, and Sookie tells Arlene that Bill has Hep V real bad, and it's progressing because he got it from her, as you know, and because of her fairy blood, I guess that's accelerating the process. And so, when all this is going on, meanwhile, Sarah Nolan's being held at Fantasia. She's got the cure-all in her system. She's chained up down there, and for some reason, they come down. The Kuza comes downstairs, which is the Japanese mafia, as you know, and drags her upstairs. So Pam, Eric's progeny, could dye her hair back to blonde, because she dyed it brown when she was on the run. And they're just saying how they're going to basically use her as a really high-paid prostitute in a sense, because she's the only one who has like the cure in her system, or she's the source of it. So they're just, Sarah Nolan's just fucked, and she kind of deserves it. She's done some pretty awful shit, and so that's the last, and so you see that, and then the strange thing about that is, like, earlier when they were down in the dungeon basement of Fantasia, Sarah Newland knows all about this. They're down there trying to feed off of her, or dragging Bill there to feed off of her, secretly, unbeknownst to the True Blood, Mr. Gus, the head of the True Blood Corporation, I guess he is anyway, and the Yakuza who were upstairs guarding her supposedly and doing a piss poor job of it. I don't know why they're keeping her in the basement of Fantasia when they could keep her in some secret cell at their corporate headquarters or something like that, under constant guard and watch, so nobody could meddle with her. But anyway, Sarah probably blurted out, they took her gag off, so Sarah probably said, Bill was down there, and Sookie knows, and Jessica knows. I mean, Gus told Eric and Pam, this is like a secret, don't tell anybody, because Eric was offered a huge share in the company once they started manufacturing new blood, which was just going to be the treatment, not the cure. And anyway, so to get to one of the main points, back to the main points, it all comes down to Bill and Sookie. They're going to have this chat at the end. Eric goes and talks to Bill, tries to, about how unconscionable it is that he's just letting himself die because it's going to upset Sookie so much, and it's just, Sookie just cares about him no matter what Bill's done. Bill's done some awful things to Sookie when he was, when he kind of went to the dark side, so to speak. But Bill's just like, Bill's attracted to our darkness just as much as we're attracted to her light. She's never going to move on if I'm on the earth. So he's just letting himself go. And anyway, Eric goes and meets up with Sookie at Belfleur's, and, has a chat with them, and says, Bill wants to talk to you, and Sookie's like, well, fuck him if he wants to die, and then Eric tries, talks her into, talking to Bill again later, which is basically where this episode winds up for the most part. And there's another, there's two sort of endings to it, or main points when the show ends. So Eric just picks up Sookie like Lois Lane and flies off like Superman, which is what I thought. And you don't see the vampires fly very often, or their powers. I mean, they do use their powers a lot, but it just seems like the really cool stuff you don't see them do quite that often. A lot of glamoring, but it is a show about it's about the characters and things like that, So when they have to fly, they fly and do all that kind of stuff, or punch through walls and do that kind of superhero shit. So dry mouth. Oh. Anyway, so Eric flies Sookie home. Her phone's ringing. It's Bill. Bill asks if he can call upon Sookie. So on the way, Bill starts making his way over and walking, even though he's really weak. He insists upon coming over to Sookie's house. Bill starts walking. He stops by his family grave, the Compton grave, and you know what he's thinking. He's probably, and then from the previews, I think he just wants to get buried there, maybe. And even though he's just going to be goo or whatever, he wants to be buried there. So he goes and just goes over to Sookie's. You see him kind of making his way over, and meanwhile, Eric goes back to Fantasia in a very comic relief move. Has sex with Ginger. Ginger's bitching because, I didn't blah, 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 you never told me you were healed from Hep V, and Eric's just like saying, I've been flying around helping people with their problems, and he's just like, so to make up for it, Ginger, do you want to fuck me, in that sort of way. So she wants to bang him in that throne that Ginger, I think, got from like, Vampires R Us or some shit, or the Salvation Army way back in the day before when they were when Fantasia was a video store. And so they have really brief, weird sex. It didn't even look like they had sex. It was just they mostly had their clothes on. It was just Ginger has like a spastic orgasm and just falls over and everything. In addition to that, just towards the end of the show too, Jessica goes to Hoyt's and reveals that they were once together, and they wind up together basically. Long story short, Bridget's pissed. Bridget goes to Jason's house after Jason showed up in his fucking squad car, most unprofessional cop ever. Wearing just wearing a freaking tank top and stuff. He just ran out of the house because he heard Jessica was coming over. And Hoyt's mad again, just like he was before when he, first found out about when Jason had sex with Jessica originally, and punches him, cold cocks him right there. And Bridget drives Jason back home, and they just hang out and have and Jason explains everything to Bridget, Hoyt's girlfriend, and they just they just sort of go to bed and hang out and not have sex. That's what happens there. So, getting back to Fantasia, after Eric has sex with Ginger, sort of, if you call that sex, goes down to the dungeon. I mean, there's nobody in the office where they were dyeing Sarah Nolan's hair. Goes down to the basement, and there's Pam under a giant weighted stake device with ropes, and the Yakuza are cutting the ropes, lowering the stake while she's lying there on the table silvered, and once again Pam is being used as leverage against Eric. And it basically, Eric reveals that after pressing, Eric reveals that Sookie knows, and they kind of figured out that Sookie knows. because she came there earlier in an earlier episode. Her not knowing exactly what's going on, Sookie came there and Eric glamored her, fake glamored her, because you can't glamour Sookie, because she's a psychic fairy or whatever, telepath. And so that happened, and so Eric's just like, she knows, and then Mr. Gus asks Sookie where does Miss Stackhouse live, and and he just didn't say anything, even though you could pretty much Google her and find out where she lives. It's not like they, I'll just get my phone out and like, dude, oh, she lives at, near Bontemps Cemetery. I mean, I don't know where his actual address is back there. Anyway, so at the end, Bill goes to Sookie's after visiting his family plot, and Sookie's just sitting in there, and then Bill knocks on the door, and then it just goes to black, goes to credits, and that's the end of that episode. And I was just like, okay. I mean, it was a fair, decent lead-in to the final episode, but I hope there's they have a decent denouement to the series. I just didn't. I mean, I've been watching it, but I've been watching it with that. I'm a fan, but I'm also like, this thing's winding down. I mean, the show's had some good comical moments this season. It's had some good action, but it's on it. It's clearly on its last fang. And I don't know, it was a good phrase, but other than that, I mean, I hope tomorrow night. As I'm making this video, it'll be tomorrow night. Probably by the time you're watching it, if anybody was gonna watch it. It's going to be tomorrow sometime, so it might be hours from now that you're going to be watching the final episode. But hopefully they, they give it a decent ending, or don't pull some shit like at the end of Dexter where he's, working as a lumberjack in Oregon or whatever. That was pretty disappointing. Now I'm going to talk about Dexter and how shitty an ending that was, but. It's been a good series, but I mean, as all series, some the quality tends to decline in the final seasons. I really pretty much I would say the last 2 seasons have been a little shaky at best. Season 5 was like the last, I think, big kind of power. It had a cool finale on season 5 when Bill exploded and then turned into a vampire god and all that. I thought that would lead into something a little better, but it wasn't bad. So yeah, so anyway, we'll see. After the final episode, I'm going to do a synopsis right after the credits roll and talk about that a little bit. So anyway, if you like my channel, like my videos, subscribe to it, and cheers to True Blood.